This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news and intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversations. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management and staff of Guardian Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Robin Dawn Lines, and I am so pleased to be your host today. This is Guardian Radio today on Guardian Radio 96.9. And just for some housekeeping, listen, if you're streaming or if you're on the web, feel free to check us out at guardiantalkradio.com. That's for live streaming of the audio and video. Also, if you're watching television, then you can tune in Cable Bahamas channel 969 or BTC Flow channel 612. You can download the Guardian Radio app on Apple or Android or any smart devices to listen. And of course, text us on Guardian Radio text line at 422-4796. And that's powered by BTC. I also want to give you the numbers because I'm hoping that you call in. We have a really heavy but important topic to talk about today. So the call lines are 323-6232 or 325-4316 or 325-4259. And for those on the Family Islands that are listening in, you can call toll-free 242-300-5720. All right? It's such a pleasure to be speaking with you today. And so if for those that may not know me, my name is, again, Robin Lines. I'm an attorney by profession. And so we're just going to be talking. We're going to be talking about a topic that I think is something that we don't talk enough about. But we're not just going to be talking. We're going to be talking with a view to looking at solutions, a solution-driven topic. And so a few weeks ago, I wrote an opinion on Ending the Silence, a national response to incest in the Bahamas. And so I want to break down that opinion piece today and get some feedback from you, the listening audience. Because when I was thinking about hosting the show and who could be the best co-host, I couldn't think of another person who would be better than you, the listening audience. I listen to Guardian Radio all the time. And most of the people who called are very measured. They're very logical, very intelligent people. And so I think that you would be the best co-host for me today to really break down this topic and talk about it in its entirety. This is part one. We're going to talk about it some more in a part two session, but let's just get right to it. And I said to myself, this is a Friday afternoon, right? You know how they say Friday afternoon, BIM? You don't want anything heavy. You don't want anything that's too serious, but I had to talk about this because these children who are living in this horror, they don't get Fridays off. They don't get weekends off. They don't get afternoon off. This is a real crisis in our country, and we have to be willing to uncover, unmask, and really have a conversation about it. So again, if you're listening in, please call someone, text someone, let them know that Guardian Radio today is on the air, and we have a show lined up today that's going to explore a national response to incest in the Bahamas. So as we get right to it, I want to remind you, those of you who are reading the newspaper and following what's happening in country, recent headlines in our courts and newspapers have caused us to confront the painful reality and truth that incest is on the rise. It's on a steady and significant increase in this country in terms of reporting of cases, all right? So in April of 2024, the Tribune newspaper reported that child abuse cases, including sexual abuse and incest, had risen by an alarming 87% compared to the previous year. And this is just reports, all right? So think about that, 87% compared to the previous year. So these are persons who have actually reported what has been going on. And if you know anything about these types of cases, then you also know that one of the things we struggle with is the lack of reporting, right? The fact that in many instances, these things don't come to the light because we're not just talking about sexual offenses. We're talking about sexual offense and abuse within a family dynamic, because that's exactly what incest is, right? It's sexual relations between family members. And so because of that, there is this veil of secrecy. There is this silence. There is this kind of almost cultural quiet when it comes to this kind of offense, that people don't want to talk about it. The challenge is, though, we are trying to save face. We are trying to protect the family name. We're trying to protect the family image. And the price of that is the child. The price of that is the person who is being harmed. All right? So there's so much to unpack when we're talking about this, particularly because in the advocacy groups and the women's groups that I've been part of, Women United, in our conversations with the Director of Public Prosecutions, our conversations with the Commissioner of Police, one of the things we're always talking about is our preparedness to deal with these types of cases. What happens from start to finish? If someone suspects that a child is being abused or knows that a child is being abused, knows that a child is part of an incestuous relationship, what do I do? How do I do it? What are the steps? What are the protocols? What should I be following, right? And then another question that we always raise, do we have adequate support to take them out of these homes, to, provide somewhere that they can stay? And you have to excuse me today. I traveled to Eleuthera on Wednesday. I had a speaking engagement there. It was a great time, but I left with a bit of congestion and a cough. I don't know. I'm going to knock it out with some aloe and the old remedies that my grandmother taught me. But for today, you just got to excuse the raspy voice and a cough here or there. But we're going to get into the conversation. I want to share with you a few of the things that I put in that article, just to kind of preface our conversation, like I mentioned to you before, and give us a bit of an anchor to talk about, because the diagnosis of this problem is not the issue. All of us know that it's happening. It's been happening for so many years in this country. This is about how do we resolve it? How do we get the kind of help our children need? So in the article, I said that the secrecy surrounding incest, combined with cultural stigma, has too often left survivors and predators without accountability. It only protects the abuser. To break this cycle, we must strengthen, improve protection, and support survivors with dignity and care. And I went to lay out about 5 things that I think we need to be implementing, 5 or 6. Firstly, we need stronger detection and reporting systems, right? So teachers, healthcare workers, clergy, and social workers. Now, these particular groupings of people are already legally obligated, according to Section 63 of a legal mandatory reporting obligation attached to these groupings of people. But in addition to that, the legal requirement, we also need to train. We need to train them to be able to see properly suspected cases of abuse. Also, reporting mechanisms have to be confidential, safe, and easy to access. So a 24/7 toll-free child protection hotline, well publicized in schools and clinics, would ensure that no child is left without help. Because the truth of the matter is, even though we talk about teachers and healthcare workers, clergy, social workers, etc., anyone and everyone should feel obligated to report an instance of child abuse, incest in this country. Secondly, schools must become a front line for defense. So every Bahamian child should receive age-appropriate education about safety, about consent, about how to report abuse. So teachers have to be trained to recognize the signs of abuse and to respond in ways of disclosure rather than shut it down. Thirdly, we have to strengthen survivor services, all right? Child-friendly forensic interview teams, immediate medical care, free long-term counseling should be guaranteed and accessible across all of our islands. Survivors should not have to navigate a maze of bureaucracy while in crisis. Number 4, our justice system has to do better. Specialized training for judges and prosecutors handling incest and child sexual abuse cases is essential. We need court processes that are sensitive to the trauma of child victims and sentences that both deter offenders and protect communities. A careful managed sex offenders registry coupled with post-release supervision would ensure ongoing accountability. Number 5, we must invest in family support and community. So parenting programs, economic support for struggling families, and targeted intervention in communities with high levels of stress, this can reduce the conditions that allow abuse to fester. So at the same time, nationwide awareness campaigns should challenge the culture of secrecy, encourage reporting, and ensure survivors that they will be supported and not shamed. And finally, we need better data and coordinations. A national child protection database would allow us to track reports, prosecutions, and services in real time. An interagency task force bringing together social services, health, education, police, judiciary, and civil society could set measurable targets and hold itself accountable to the Bahamian public through annual reporting. Convictions and prison sentences are very important. I understand that all too well as an attorney, but they're not enough. They punish harm after it has already occurred. They do not prevent harm in the first place. So our national response has to be focused on prevention, early detection, and despite what some families have chosen, wrongly chosen, incest is not a private family matter. It's not something to be kept secret. It's not something to be held and kept in-house. You know the saying where they say what happens in the family stays in the family? No, not in this case. It's a crime. It's a public health emergency. And the victims are children who are going to carry these consequences into adulthood unless we act. And that's our topic for today. That's our conversation for today. And I want to get into all 6 of those suggestions, all 6 of those areas of prevention, reporting, address. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. So please, listen, pick up the phone, pick up your cell phone, your landline, and call in, all right? Again, Guardian Radio text line is 422-4796, or you can call us on 323-6232, 325-4316, or 325-4259. Toll free from the Family Islands. It's 242-300-5720. I want to hear from you. I also have a really thorough message from one of our social service officers who was not able to be here today, but she wanted to provide me with the steps that we can share for someone who suspects that abuse is going on. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. I am so excited to hear some of your opinions and thoughts and suggestions. We'll be right back after this break.
With Christ Church Cathedral, Nassau starts here. This November 1st, George Street is coming alive at the cathedral that made Nassau a city. Cathedral Street Festival is back, filled with mouth-watering food, one-of-a-kind art and crafts, and a $10,000 raffle prize. Feel the rhythm of Nassau with live performances, Bahamian music, and fun for the whole family. Nassau starts here. Don't miss it, November 1st.
Boy, you know what's going down tomorrow?
Nobody, what happening?
Joe bringing the knife to school? He could do Junior in.
For what?
But he fooled with Joe girl.
Mother sick. And you know Junior don't back down for nothing. So that means you got a big fight tomorrow.
So whose side you on?
Side? I trying to stay in school, not Simpson Pen. We gotta tell somebody about this fight.
Tell somebody. I ain't no snitch. I mean cool, you know.
Wait, if you so cool, then you need to stay in school and stay out of the fight.
Yeah, but if I don't hang on Joe's side, how many boys coming for me next?
All right, so we definitely gotta tell somebody. We gotta prevent the fight.
What I say, I don't want nobody call me snitch.
We could just call Crime Stoppers. You could report what you know, and nobody gotta know it's you.
So how did I boy?
All you gotta do is call them, or you text them through the Crack Crime Bahamas app, and nobody can know it's you.
Then the police come looking for me for more info? And when they finish with taking me?
When you call Crime Stoppers, the calls go directly to Miami, and they don't ask nothing about you. Then you can get the pen from them, and they can claim a reward later using that same pen.
Plus, everything's scrambled, so nobody can read what you're saying.
Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We are back. This is Robin Lines joining you today as your host for Guardian Radio today. And just before the break, we were going through Ending the Silence, talking a little bit about a national response to incest in the Bahamas. And of course, as you know, you are my co-host, the listening audience of Guardian Radio. And like I mentioned, I say it with all truth. The callers at Guardian Radio are measured, they're logical, they're intelligent, and they can real conversation. And so I know that there's a caller on the line. I'm going to give you an opportunity to delve right in. This is a heavy, heavy topic for a Friday, but this is something that we have to talk about. We don't talk about it enough. So caller, are you there?
But Robin, you know I'm always here for you.
I know that voice from anywhere. This sounds like my good brother, my love, Garth Roseborough. How are you?
Oh boy, listen to me. I tell you, I got to be the first.
You got to be the first. That's it.
I got to be the first. So it's lovely to hear your voice.
The pleasure is mine to hear yours.
I endorse and support you 1,000% as usual. And I am listening.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Garth. You heard the topic that we're talking about, a national response to incest in the Bahamas. Is a heavy topic. It's a lot going on inside our country. What are your thoughts about that? What do you think we need to be doing as a people?
Well, we have to find our psychological base, Robin. We got to find out why we are the way we are today. When did we go? We are deeply seated religious people. And for the most part, we're quite intelligent. And to have this imbalance, we need to find the root of this imbalance. Some say it's maybe in the diet, maybe it's in our food, some chemical imbalance within our eating. Some are simply saying that we have just forgotten our spiritual roots, who we are as a people. I know when I was growing up, the respect we had for each other, male and female, etc., stemmed from the fact that our parents were just highly religious.
Yes.
I grew up in a time when we were playing in our cars the Cooling Waters and the Region Bells and other such music. Now your parents playing this rap and heavy metal and reggae, and it's all sexual. And I believe that ministers of the gospel, you have a very, very pivotal role to play in terms of role modelship. The educators, those people who are in authority in terms of social services, etc. There's so much work to be done now because we have just simply broken the fabric of that which it means to be moral in this country.
Wow.
And so with all the pressures of the universe, of the world abroad, we're bending into their thought pattern. And I do believe that we as a culture, we got to go back home, find the base of who we truly are. And I believe that will begin to fight the demons of this incestuous thought pattern in our people,
That's a lot. You said a lot. And I absolutely agree with you. I think we have to come to a recognition and an understanding that, listen, we're not going to be able to have the kind of country we seek if we have so many broken people, so many damaged people. And a lot of times we see adults that are wayward, we see adults that are deviant, we see adults that are challenged. And we're trying to figure it out. But sometimes if you peel back the layers, you will find childhood trauma. You will find childhood, and they are the product of the scars that they've endured in their childhood. And that is why it is so very important for us to see this as a collective problem, to see it as a national crisis. It doesn't matter if it's not my child, it's not your child, it's not your family member. It is a national issue that we have to talk about, and we have to talk about it in honesty, in openness, and with a view to addressing it. So thank you so much,
you're
Garth.
right.
I really appreciate it. Anything else you want to say
Yeah,
just
but-
before we go to another
No,
call on the line?
Robin, you're a lawyer, and you're my lawyer, and I really, really appreciate you as an individual. You're a spiritual person.
Thank you. I appreciate you too.
I think where we're also going wrong is that there's no respect for consequences in this country. When you commit an act, we look at consequences so negatively, as if, we don't have to be so harsh. We don't have to be so righteous. But the truth be told is that the purpose of punishment is to deter others from committing the very same act.
Yes.
I know it sounds horrific and horrendous, but at the same time, these things have biblically just shown that if you are an offender, this is going to be the consequences.
Yes.
And we cannot be a people who are afraid of such consequences, man. We got to be more living and more appreciative of the righteous act that, we're trying to have a pure nation. And until we get there, my child's not a bad child. Why you had to give him 10 years? Why you had to give him 15 years? Why is the punishment so heavy? No, man. When my own child decides that they're going to do an horrendous act, they need to pay the consequences. This is what is expected of society in terms of marshalling and protecting the innocent.
That's right.
And until we get there, we're going to continue to have a repeat of the same.
I appreciate you so much, Garth. Thank you so much. Thank you. So we have someone that texted in, and this person said, like Dr. Allen said, hurt people, and that is so serious, and that is so true. Hurt people, and like I was saying just a few minutes ago, so many people are living out the manifestation of childhood trauma and childhood devastation. We have another caller on the line. I'd like to hear what they have to say. Hi, how are you?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, we have seen this thing play out in the Bahamas for so long.
Yes.
And you said there's no more time to be silent. And that's correct?
Yes, this is we're talking about ending silence, because I think one of the things about incest that we face as a country is that so many families hold it near and dear when these things are happening. So the police intervention, the intervention of social services and other agencies that can assist that child and take them out of that trauma are unaware. There's no reporting in a lot of instances.
But like, if the truth of the matter being told, things that, you start from the gatekeepers.
Yes.
Things that inside the church happen.
Wow.
You dare know how they could send your little children now to Sunday school or whatever because they're being molested.
Wow.
And because who it is in society, we take it, we put it under the rug. We hide these things. And it's only coming to the small man. When the small man do these things, we hear Father 65 for the grandchildren, because you know why? They have no name brown in this country.
Wow. So you talking...
So they don't have a problem bringing them out. But we hide those said who in high places.
Wow.
The hypocrisy inside this country. And we go to these places, we sit down, we hear these people talking, and we don't put these people before. We try to make an agreement with these people and stuff like that. And this is why everything is now blown out of proportion.
Wow. I think you said a mouthful, caller.
Thank you.
You're talking about classism. You're talking about socioeconomic status and how things are not even being dealt with fairly. So even in instances where there is reporting, who is being reported may even determine the outcome of those cases. I think that is significant what you said, and it is so very, very true. So we're not just talking about breaking the silence. What happens when you break the silence? But the person being accused is a person of status, right? A person who has, like we like to say, connections. Are you finished with your thoughts? Because I just wanted to write that down because I thought that was so important to say. Thank you for that caller. That's a mouthful right there. You know, one of the things that I've in some pro bono cases that I've done, and when we do part 2 of the show, we'll have someone from the Crisis Center with us. We'll have someone from the Royal Bahamas Police Force with us. We'll have someone from social services, and we'll have someone from the SCAN unit so that we can hear from the professional agencies on this matter. But I just wanted us to talk today a little bit. But one of the things that I have been confronted with as an attorney dealing with these cases, we are living in a time now where mothers, fathers, family members are not just aware of what is happening in some of these households against these innocent children. It is harbored, right? And it is allowed for economic means. Children are being allowed to be raped, right? To be abused. In some instances, the abuser is the breadwinner. The abuser is the person who is making financial contributions to the household. So it's not even a secret, right? It's not even something that is being done under the cover of night. It's open in the family. But you can't say anything about him. You can't say anything. And I don't want anyone to think that this is, when we talk about incest, when we talk about this level of abuse against children, that we're talking about men abusing children. Women have been found guilty of incest as well, right? Guilty offenses against children as well. So we're talking about everyone. But a lot of times, in some instances, people are making financial decisions. That this is the person who pays the light, pays the rent, pays the mortgage, the groceries. And so, you know, these children are the price tag. They are the cost of persons and their ability to continue to sustain themselves and live a certain type of way. And so we have so many challenges, but that's why it's so important for us to strengthen our ability to see, to perceive, to detect, right? When you interact with children, when you encounter them, there are certain times that lets you know that something is not right with this child. And I was talking to a social worker just this morning, and she said to me, the predominant reports of incest and child abuse cases are coming from the schools. So teachers are on the wall. And I just want to say a special shout out to the teachers in our schools because so much falls at their feet. But teachers have been leading in terms of reporting instances of incest and child abuse. And that is both where children have confided in their teachers and also where teachers have seen certain signals that suggest to them that this is a child that is experiencing trauma. There's another caller on the line, so I want to get to that caller. Caller, you're on the line. Please join the conversation. Caller, are you there? Okay, we may have lost that caller, but please call back. Right, the phone lines are 323-6232, 325-4316, or 325-4259, and join this conversation. But as I was saying, teachers are leading the charge, right? Teachers are doing what it is that they need to do, and they need to have more support. A lot of times in the schools, the student to guidance counselor ratio is too great, right? The guidance counselors can't meet this great demand that they have for the problems that a lot of our children are coming to school with. There's so many things that we need to do differently, that we need to do better as a country. I want to go back to the phone lines and join, of course, the listening audience is my co-host. So, caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. How are you?
I am good, and you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
That's good. I'm good physically, but I don't know, mentally. I'm good mentally. I'm good.
That's
but,
good to
Ms.
hear.
Lyons,
Hi. Talk
we
to
have
me.
7 female members of Parliament, right?
Yes.
And I would have expected that with all of these social ills that are being perpetrated against our young children, especially young girls, that they would stand up and make a resolution or pass or present a bill or whatever it is. Look at the incident that happened recently with this young lady.
Which one are you talking
I don't
about
just want to
specifically?
hear, we give our condolences to the family of this. What are you doing? You're in Parliament. You are in the place where laws are supposed to be passed to govern our country. And you go there every time the House meets, and you don't say anything. Isn't that what you were elected for? To pass laws for the good governance of this country? We sit outside and we talk, and we as Joe Public, we can voice our concerns and whatnot. But the power right now is vested in the House of Assembly. They can pass laws tomorrow in regards to illegal guns, whatever in our side, and not just pass laws, because we have a tendency to pass laws, but we don't enforce the laws that we pass. But if the government would be the government and pass laws and enforce these laws so that people can know that there are consequences, not just these little tap on the wrist. The other day, this young man who forced these young children, ages 5 and 6, to perform sexual acts on one another. Man, he should have been sent to jail for life.
Wow.
We need to show people out there that there are severe consequences for their action. If not, we're going to be on this run. We're going to be just beating about our gums and whatever until Christ comes.
Absolutely.
That's my advice.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, caller. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about solution-driven conversation. Not conversation just because we could talk, but at the end of it, what are we doing? And you're so right, we can legislate ourselves into a whole lot of things, but I think when it comes to incest and abuse, the laws and the evidence of the laws on the books, one thing, but it has to get there. It has to get to the court. It has to be reported. It has to get to the authorities. And we're talking about that too in this conversation. The silence, the secrecy, the lack of reporting, right? Whether the system itself is sufficiently welcoming for these kinds of matters, because the truth, and I don't want our conversation to be all over the place, because this is such a huge thing to talk about, is even after an offense is reported, you could be dealing with that case for years. All right? So you have a 6-year-old molested, and when that case is being tried and evidence is being given, that 6-year-old is 12 years old, 11 years old, 13 years old, trying to move on with her life. Sometimes witnesses no longer available. So many different things. I don't even want to go to, we may have to talk about that in part 2, but Carla, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. What are we prepared to do as a country, as a society? Governments, people, governments are moved by advocacy. Don't think that no one is listening when people gather together in like-mindedness and start to herald for a cause. Governments move, the legislators pen, it moves. But we have to be serious and consistent in what it is that we're seeking to address. All right, we're going to take another break, and I'm looking forward to hearing from a few more of you on the call, looking at a few more of you that are texting in, because what you have to say what you have experienced, what you may know is important. People need to hear it. People need to you know, by what it is that you have to say. This, like I said, this is a heavy topic. It's a big one, but I think it's something we have to talk about. So we'll continue our conversation right after this break.
Don't wait for a storm to arrive. Stock up on hurricane supplies, make home repairs, use a generator, and more this hurricane season with a Fidelity personal loan. Make that move today. Call 356-7764.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
This October, Bahama invites you to indulge your senses at the Culinary and Arts Festival, where world-class flavors meet breathtaking creativity in the heart of the Bahamas. Join us October 22nd through 26th for an unforgettable celebration. Culinary legends Marcus Samuelson, Dario Zucchini, Simeon Hall Jr., and Scott Conant, alongside a vibrant lineup of chefs and mixologists. Explore captivating art installations, interactive workshops, and live performances, all set against the stunning backdrop of Nassau's premier luxury resort. From curated tasting events to beachfront feasts and immersive gallery experiences, this is more than a festival. It's a feast for the soul. Tickets and packages are going fast. Visit Bahamar.com to reserve your spot at the Culinary and Arts Festival at Bahamar, where taste and talent take center stage. This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. You're listening to Guardian Radio today, and you're chilling with me today, Robin Lines. Thank you so much for joining us. We're talking about ending the silence, a national response to incest in the Bahamas. And I've been so grateful for the callers. We have another caller that's on the line now. So let's take it straight to the caller. Caller, you're live.
Good afternoon, Ms. Fine.
Good afternoon. How are you?
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
That's great. Hey, Ms. Lyons, do you know what the problem is in this country?
Mm-hmm.
And like, you have very poor standards from the top coming down, from male and female.
Wow.
And basically, like, the standards drop so low in the house. I mean, like, females would, like, they basically would walk around naked. Because on the street, look at how they dress. Look, like, if we don't raise the standard, and if women don't have principles, see, women supposed to have principles. And the little girls, all the little girls, are doing the same thing they see the mother doing, and they want to be, even right down to wearing those wigs and stuff. Babies of them, hairs and then tie up in their hair. You know, a baby has a time to be a baby, and that's, you can't force a child to be a woman. You can't force a little boy to be a man. And no one has the right to touch anybody, to rape anybody. But if you're looking at society, you look around, it's disgusting. Women feel as if they have a right to walk around naked in public. What do you think about in the home? The standards have to be lifted. The government needs to be responsible, because it ain't no way that a government who is in charge, and if they have their hair screwed on right, if they see little boys walking around naked, they'll pass laws and they need to stop that. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what they'll do. But your suggestion is that we need to legislate how people dress?
The standards have to be left, man.
Lifting the standard?
The standards have to be left. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Look at, okay, I ride around in disgust. I see these little girls of school age. They're walking around with short dresses, right cut off, or right to the buttocks.
Well, let me ask you this question, because it's interesting, and I understand what you're saying. People, because we're talking about incest, right? And this is about family. This is about sexual relations within the family, and we're talking specifically.
It's about rape. Rape is rape. Be it in the home, be it in the public, rape is rape.
No, I understand, but I want to ask you something, because we're talking specifically about children. right? And that non-consensual sexual engagement with children from family members, uncles, auntie, mommy, daddy, whomever. But what you're talking about now is a style of dress. But do we suggest that a predator, a sexual predator, right, would be deterred if someone is wearing something that is not, I mean, for lack of a better word, revealing or not sexually enticing? Is that what you're suggesting? Because I mean, to me, if someone is a sexual predator, right,
it makes no difference.
That goes beyond what you're wearing.
Yeah,
that goes beyond even what you're doing. That is something innate.
Yeah, but understand, you know, even if one is not a sexual predator, right, and just the proliferation of this nakedness and nudeness all around, every day, all around, and then people be talking about, oh yeah, the whole conversation be sexual. You know, I mean, when you have a public that allow that to be, and you ain't think it be in the home too, we have to keep it real. The government the government is the government who controls everything in this country. And when things go talking about wrong, the government's supposed to be putting their foot down. You know, when you see nakedness and lewdness, you pass a law to stop that.
Well, that's an interesting idea. That's an interesting perception. But I am not of the opinion that would address the problem that we're talking about today. When we're talking about incest, I think the standard and the style that people are choosing to dress is another conversation. But I'm very, very grateful for your opinion on the matter. I want to take it to another caller. Thank you so much. Take it to another caller. Caller, you're on the air. What are you thinking about this topic?
Good afternoon, Bahamas.
Good afternoon.
I'm listening here to your conversation, and you're asking the question, what did we do to address this vexing and what I only describe as the evil in our society?
Absolutely.
While incest is terrible, you have, according to the research, stepfather, boyfriend, family friend, or whatever kind of friend. They're the ones who are 6 times more likely to sexually abuse children in their care than the biological fathers or relatives. So let's keep it in the proper context, because, you know, it's a cop-out when we just say incest and we don't look at the other mitigating factors who are 6 times more likely to do this type of thing on children. But when you look at the last 20 years, we've been averaging around 450 reported cases of various forms of child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting worse.
Yes.
And you know how it goes, Ms. Lyons. For every case that goes reported, you have at least 3 that goes unreported. So you see the type of situation that we find ourselves in. Hello?
Yes. No, I'm listening to you loud and clear. I'm just giving you a full opportunity to talk.
This particular issue, I've been an advocate, a fathers and childhood advocate now for the past 22 years. Within the first 40 months of my advocacy, we were able to lead the charge in the country in getting the Child Protection Act passed in Parliament in 2006. And for whatever reason, it seems like the government was angry because they delayed it, and they just enforced it in 2009. But it took that long. But, you know, we have a bigger issue. You know, we signed on a treaty we became a signatory to this treaty in 1989, and we ratified it in 1991.
Which treaty are you talking about? That's the
Geneva Convention, which speaks to the rights of the child. Are you familiar with that particular treaty?
I am, yes.
Yeah, well, prior to us coming on the scene, many people didn't even know it existed because the committee was formed and it was 10 years in dormant without doing anything. I didn't even realize it existed until I continued with my advocacy, and I was able to discover that. But the problem we have in our society is that it seems that a great segment of influential people have a high tolerance for child sex in the Bahamas.
Wow.
That's basically what it is.
You said a thing.
You see the numbers, and you're not doing anything to address it meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that give you an indication that they they tolerate this type of behavior?
That's a thought. That's a thought. We're going to explore that a little bit more. You have any final comments? Because we have a few callers on the line I want to get to.
The problem is that we need to look at the Child Protection Act. The Child Protection Act,
yes,
it isn't gender neutral. It is flawed. It has no ombudsman. It has no child advocate. It has no regulations. It has basically very little to protect our nation's children. And until we bring it up to standards that is applicable to the articles in the Geneva Convention, nothing will change in our society.
That's interesting. Now, the Child Protection Act does talk about child advocates. Now, it does talk about that, and we'll get a little bit into that when we explore the legal parameters in part 2 of this show. But I thank you so much for calling. You said a mouthful, and a caller before you talked a little bit about that too. This classism, right? The socioeconomic status of people being another veil of secrecy and protection where predators are influential. I want to go to another caller in just 1 minute. Let me just go to one or two of the texts, right? And I think this text message is in response to a caller that talked a little bit about wanting to hear more from female MPs when it comes to these kinds of conversations. And the texter said they have to toe the party line. Simple. Female MPs. And then the caller has a sigh. Another texter in relation to a caller that had a varying perception of people and how they dress and whether we should legislate that. And this texter said, so this caller thinks women here should wear hijabs. Newsflash, those women in those countries are raped too. And this is Sparky, in relation to that caller as well, talking about the style of dress. And Sparky said, what should a lady dress in at the beach? And beach is in all caps, so I guess he's shouting that out right now. Sparky, thank you so much for your text. Now, the caller on the line, we're going to be taking, are we taking a break, Mr. Producer, or we can take the call before, or should we take it after? So let me go to the caller just before this break. Caller, you're live.
Good afternoon. I don't mind you take a break because I invest in calling. It's my hobby.
You know, man, listen, you live, so you gotta
yes,
say.
Okie dokie.
So share with me. What are you thinking about this?
Yes,
this really
First of all,
important topic.
When we raise the standard has to be raised for the men like myself and all the other men. I'm 62, and it doesn't matter how old I am or how young I am. From the boys in the primary schools, we need to learn to respect women, irrespective of how they dress.
Yes.
I don't think in any way the government should legislate how people dress. And as one of your texts said, that they even rape people who have on an entire sheet, covered on with a sheet.
That's right.
So what we need to do is to raise the standard in purifying our minds, okay?
Yeah.
And if we do that as adults or everyone, male and female, because there can be sexual advances with the same sex and all of that in different ages, it would be better. What the government can do for sure, and what I have been asking for, is to raise the age of consent. In no way you cannot vote or drink alcohol legally until a certain age, but yet you can live in your parents' home to have sex with Tom, Dick, or Harry, whoever this person may be.
Whole nother conversation, and that's a big one. But listen, news is at the top of the 3 o'clock hour, and so we're just going to take a break, news, and then we're going to come back and have the conversation continue. So please, this is Guardian Radio Today, and you're with me, Robin Lyons. I'll see you after the break.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. News, smart talk, all day.
And we are back. Listen, this is Guardian Radio today on 96.9 FM. And if you're tuning in, you're having a conversation with Ben Lyons, your host for today. I just want to remind you of our text lines and our call lines because you, the listening audience, are my co-hosts for this important conversation. We're talking about ending the silence, a national response to incest in the Bahamas. And like I said before, please pardon my voice. I picked up a little bit of a bug, a little bit of a cough. And so you have to excuse me today. I think I'm going to sound better when we chat again next week, Friday. But the text lines are 422-476. Thank you so much to BTC for powering the text lines. Or you can call us at 323-325-4316 or 325-4259. Found left out. Call toll free 242-307-20. We have another call on the line that was there waiting even before we took the break. So I want to go down the air.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing fine, thanks. How are you?
Wonderful.
Good.
I am good. So I think that is that we need to change some of our laws. If you go in deep in the Middle East, in some places, Muslim places, this don't happen because they deal with the law right away, which means what they do. They basically stone people right away. I don't believe I'm a Christian. But what I believe the government can do is the government can put laws in place. If you do drive-by killing or incest rape, there should be high penalties. Drive-by killing should be at least 50 to 70 years in jail. Incest, rape, or rape in general, 20 minimum. 20 to 30 years. So if we implement these laws, and some of the reasons why the laws don't get implemented is because sitting in Parliament is lawyers. And believe me when I tell you, some of them understand it's not going on. So I say to you, and I don't say this for every lawyer, business is dealing with crime and criminal. You're not doing the whole thing. You still need business. So I'm just saying, I think if we implement laws, strict laws, drive-by killing should be no 1 year. This will take their life away from society itself. And incest, rape in general, should be no less than 50 years, and you'll watch it go down fast. Why?
50 years.
They ain't never got no chance to come out of jail.
So
God
you're
bless.
talking about sentencing as a deterrent before you even make that move. You know that if you are found guilty of incest, automatic 50 years in prison. That's a thought. That's an absolute thought. I want to go to the text lines. One of the persons that are texting, talking about the caller before the last caller, and they said that the last caller is spot on. A 16-year-old child can have sex, but can't get birth control, even an STD test on their own until they're 18. That 2-year gap is when a lot of shady stuff makes no sense. And this is another texter. This is a bit of a long one, but I want to share it because I think it's important. And the texter says, first, it's refreshing to hear men speak on the issue, but we need them to be present when this issue is being fought for. We live in a patriarchal society, and we need them to stand 10 toes down when these issues, when we're fighting for enforcement or harsher laws against those that commit these. As a young lady, it's disheartening for me to not want to bring children into this world, knowing that something like this could happen to one of them, and by someone I consider a family member or someone I look up to that's supposed to protect them, but instead takes their innocence. The texter says, men, we need you to stand alongside us, alongside our children, in their innocence, and fight for harsher penalties of these offenders. Thank you so much for all of you that are texting. Listen, continue to let these messages roll in. Mr. Producer, do we have another caller on the line? Can we take that call, please? Caller, you're live. Hi. How are you?
About your callers, right? But let me tell you what our problem is in this country. Cases take too long to come to trial.
Yes.
Okay? If you be like the U.S., when your case starts, you get 2 weeks mark. So force the lawyers to do their job. A lot of lawyers just keep putting up these cases over and over and over and over. It's all about money for money. You know what I mean? They need to be proactive and have their case together, and you get 2 weeks trial, and based on the outcome of that, you get sentenced. Stop putting these cases off over and over. You get people coming in on bail, 4 or 5 months on bail. It don't make no sense. You know what I mean? So then look at it from society. It's very money in for these lawyers.
So you're talking about lawyers seeking consistent adjournments and defense attorneys?
Yes.
Well, the prosecutions
force them to do their job.
Yeah. Well, the
You know what I mean?
prosecutors also seek a lot of adjournments.
And
No,
if
I'm
they
just
don't
saying.
have their act together in 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is.
Wow.
Yeah, have a good day.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that call. The caller is saying, listen, these cases are taking far too long. Persons are on bail sometimes for years, right? Free before these cases are tried. And we talked a little bit about that before we went to a break, just thinking about the length of time that passes. Sometimes children don't, so their account and their ability to remember the details, even though they have taken witness statements, sometimes just their ability to remember the details or even to want to remember the details, they're challenged in their witness, challenged in their testimony. So many things happen when there is inordinate delay, right? Inordinate delay. And so defense attorneys, and I take the point, a lot of times defense counsels are seeking adjournments, and based on the calendar of judges is just absolutely saturated by the sheer volume. You can come in October and not be ready to proceed and get an adjournment to sometime in the middle of next year or even beyond that point. So I absolutely agree with that and take the point. But it's also the prosecution as well. Sometimes the prosecution is not prepared to proceed, and that is also leading to adjournment. So we're talking about initial response to incest in this country. And so far, we've touched on a lot of things. We've talked about sentencing needing to be fixed, right? Looking at fixed penalties and making this a fixed penalty offense so that people know if you are found guilty with proof of doubt of this offense. Listen, 30 years, 50 years minimum, we're taking you off the street. We talked a little bit about classism, right? And societies, that we need to bring people to justice. We need to ensure that it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, who you know, what you have, money or otherwise. If you are found guilty of a crime, any crime, and particularly what we're talking about right now, incest and child abuse, that we're not going to protect you, that we're not going to allow you to be shielded. It's the child that needs protection. We're going to bring you before the court, and you're going to be dealt with as severely as the law allows. We also delved a little bit into this interesting perspective of a caller that maybe we need to legislate the dress code. What do you think about that? What do you think about what that caller had to say? Maybe we need to legislate the dress code. Maybe we need to lift the standard. Women are dressing too provocatively. Women are dressing too revealing. I don't think it has anything to do with it. I know what consent is. I think this is the nature of a predator. I think this is the nature of someone who is sadistic, someone who needs serious help. Because if you could look at a child and be sexually aroused, that in and of itself speaks to something that is wrong with you. All right? And I don't think what anyone wears has anything to do with they should be a victim of sexual violation. But it's an interesting thought, because I know that caller is not alone in that thought process. This is Sparky again, right? And Madam Friend, this Sparky says he's been barred from calling the shows. He said he to stop using foul language, and he said that there are other persons who've used foul language and still permitted to call. Okay, Sparky, I can't get in that. You know, the producer is gonna do what they do and how they do. And I guess they'll lift the embargo against you in due time. All right. But in the meantime, Sparky, feel free to text and I'll read everything you say as long as don't have no cuss. All right. We're going to go to the phone lines and get it to another caller. Hello.
Good afternoon, Ms. Lyons. How are you today?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. There is no sentence that you can give for immorality, some of these gentlemen who's supposed to be men and having incest with kids, my God. I think the law should be changed to first offending, 10 years. Second time they do it, 25 years. And the third time they be deemed habitual criminal. That means they get life sentence in prison. Because, you from day one, when you do something like that, you destroy a child's life, okay? If it is a boy, they won't look at a girl the way they'll normally look at a girl. And if it's a girl, they won't look at a boy the way they should look at a boy. I mean, they will always have that stigma stick with them for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is no sentence that is not great enough for immorality.
Wow.
So the higher the sentence go, the better it is for those what I call perverts. They can't be men because men don't act like that.
Thank you so much, caller. I appreciate you. Mr. Producer, do we have any other call on the line? I have a text message, and this is interesting as well, and I want to share this with you, my co-host. This texter is saying, our assumption in the Bahamas has been that children involved in incest are merely passive and unwilling victims. The text is an oversimplification of a complex situation. Young children may find such relationships gratifying, and when they are repeatedly exposed to intentional and extragenital stimulation, they can develop heightened erotic responses. This learned behavior may become self-reinforcing, making it challenging to modify. And that is so true. And an aspect of this that we also have to look at, a lot of children are exposed. And that in and of itself is abuse. A lot of children are exposed to content that they should not be exposed to. A lot of children are seeing things that they should not see, heightening these erotic thoughts, heightening their sexual appetite at an age where they don't even understand it, right? We're talking about incest. We also have cases in this country where the predator is a child as well. So it's not just having these sexual encounters with children, sometimes older children with younger children, right? So we have so many, like I said, this is such a multi-layered, multifaceted conversation. We also have to look at the exposure to the World Wide Web and the accessibility to the web, and the fact that there are so many things that can be accessed at no cost, right? And so when children are left for periods of time unsupervised on tablets, on phones, and other electronic devices with access to the internet, you have no idea what these children are watching. There are all sorts of websites that offer free pornographic material. It's so easily accessible. Listen, as parents, as adults, as people who want to protect our children, we even have to look at the kind of cartoons. And I mean, the world has gone to such great, it's just fallen to such gradation that even the cartoons that you think, okay, this is a cartoon, let Johnny watch this, let Sarah watch the content of the cartoons, because now there are so many subliminal messages in the cartoons that are teaching our children things that we aren't teaching them things that we don't subscribe to, teaching them things that we don't believe. And so parents, guardians, adults, we have to protect our children themselves, even from themselves, all right? So, and like I said, we a lot of the callers have talked about sexual offenses. A lot of the callers are talking about rape. Some of the callers are talking about other matters, sexual indecency. But this conversation is about a national response to Bahamas. And like I said, by definition, incest is a sexual relationship between family. We're talking about it in the context of an adult and a child, all right? Talking about how do we respond? How do we lift the veil of secrecy? How do we ensure that we as a country, we as a society, we're responding to this growing and vexing crisis with the level of force and gravity that it deserves. We talk about stronger detection and reporting systems. In the first portion of the show, when I was reading some of the extracts from the article and the opinion I had written, and we also talked about schools being on the front line of defense. We have to teach our children what is appropriate touching. How should, even in the context of family members, even in the context of people that you're supposed to trust, this is your uncle, this is your auntie, this is your sister, your brother, your cousin, whomever, but this is appropriate touching. This is appropriate physical interaction. How young is too young to introduce these conversations as protection mechanisms for our children so that they understand and they know, so that it's age appropriate. And we're talking about body safety. We're talking about consent, right? We're talking about them understanding that no matter what someone says to you, how much fear they try to put in you, there are persons that you need to talk to and should talk to. An adult you trust, whether that is an adult at your school, whether that's another adult at home, whether that's another adult at church, wherever. Those are some of the things that we need to be instilling in our children, and it's chilling that we need to even have a conversation like that with our young children. But this is the reality in which we live, and we cannot put our head in the sand. There's another call on the line. Caller, I'd like to hear from you.
Great, Church usual. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Right, yeah, this is a multifaceted situation, right? And it's a complex, it has many working parts to it, right? Why I'm saying this is, right, one, the indecency, right? I don't think that you can solve that problem, right? Because when you go to the food store, simple as the food store, right? Everyone got the whole camel showing. You see where I'm coming from? So
yes.
the indecency, and second thing, right? Incest, that's been going on. The only and it's become normalized. That's been going on for over 50, 60, 70, 80 years. It's known as a hush-hush situation within families.
Yes.
So it became normal. The only difference is social media came out to expose the dirt that's going on in between these things.
And caller, that's exactly what we're talking about. We can't normalize that. We can't
But
normalize.
No.
We can't say it's too late. We can't say it's too late, because if we're saying it's too late, think about what you're saying. If we're saying it's too late, then do you have any children?
No, before you go.
No. I just want to ask.
No, I don't have any children.
You have any children you love?
I have some nephews.
Yeah. So when we talking about too late, at which point would it be okay or normalized or acceptable in any way, shape, or form for a family member to sexually abuse any of your nephews?
Okay, to me, right, that become problematic in any situation.
No, but that's what I'm saying. And so we can't say it's too late. We can't say we've gone too far, because these children are depending on us, right, to put the mechanisms in place to offer them some protection. I appreciate your call.
Okay, one more thing I want to mention, right? Whereas that you're talking about children and watching different situations, right? The internet is a dangerous thing. I keep on telling people, right? You don't know what these children watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? The first thing is you do when a child cry at 1 year old, you stick a tablet in their hand, right? So they zoom and you only monitoring the tablet. They're watching all type of foolishness on the tablet device, right? You think they're taking it.
That's right.
They know these children know sexual things before we even teach them. They know more than we even think. Trust me, your children are more advanced than you think they are because of the internet.
Thank you, caller. I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts. And we're talking about incest, a national response to incest, ending silence, breaking secrecy, coming into homes and exposing what is happening under the veil of family stigma, of family pride, right? What is happening to our children in these households. And one thing I want to say, an adult has to be an adult. There's a reason why the law does not even impose what you call liability on a child at certain ages, right? Everything is relative to certain ages, ages of accountability and culpability. That's because children mature at certain stages and phases. But as an adult, it doesn't matter how much that child has been exposed to certain things of a sexual content or nature online. You know, sometimes they like to say, oh, he fast, she fast. You're the adult. You are the adult, and under no circumstance is it okay for you to engage in any level of sexual activity with a minor. And that is where we need to stick the pin, right? There is no excuse. There are no circumstances in which this is okay. It's never going to be okay. All right? And so we need to have that as the basis of our exchanges and our discussions, that this is not okay. It's never going to be okay. And we need to ensure that we are getting things in line so that when these matters occur, there is some that is able to deal with it in its entirety and deal with it appropriately and in the shortest time possible. We need to look at the fact that mental health is playing a very serious and significant role into these types of relationships, these incestuous relationships. In a lot of instances, these persons are dealing with mental health issues. The perpetrators of these sexual offenses are dealing with mental health issues. There are so many layers, like I keep saying, but we have to chip at it. We have to be consistent. We have to be committed to ensuring that we cover every area, right? We remove every loophole, every area of escape, because at the end of the day, these are lives. We're not just talking numbers. We're not just talking statistics. We're talking lives, all right? When I said 80%, 87% of reporting, right, of sexual abuse and offense cases, a lot of them are incestuous. From April 2024 to April 2025, there's a child behind every number. There's someone that's hurting. We have to take a break. I know we have some callers. We have some persons who are texted, and the phone went dead. So if you're texting, don't go anywhere now, okay? I got to try to see if I can get this phone charged so I can see what you're saying on the text line. And if you can't get me on the text, please call. All right, 325-4316, 323-6232, 325-4259, or toll free from the Family Island, 242-300-5720. We'll be right back after the break.
Loss of family members is very isolating, and people who have experienced loss appreciate when others have shared their grief. If you can't be there in person, go to the Nassau Guardian's website online, nassau.com, and visit our obituary link. The Nassau Guardian's interactive obituary link allows you to read the funeral announcement, express condolences, or place photos on the online guest book for 1 full year. Losing a loved one is painful, but that pain isn't the worst thing to happen. Friends, loved ones, colleagues, and neighbors who ignore the loss compound the pain. Should the bereaved family wish to place the obituary and photos on our obituary site, just contact the Guardian's Funeral Industry Partners or the Nassau Guardian. Remember, there isn't one magic right thing to say to someone experiencing loss that will make the loss less painful or easier to bear. The Nassau Guardian's obituary link, available online at thenassauguardian.com.
For fast reliable and impactful printing services, look no further. Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life. We stand by our quality products that is second to none. Our affordable pricing and friendly, efficient staff is the ultimate choice for all your printing needs. We can deliver any type of printing services, from banners to booklets to business cards. You name it, we can print it.
Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located in the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
And we're back. You're listening in and locked into Guardian Radio today, 96.9. This is Robin Lyons, your host for today. And we are talking about ending the silence, a national response to incest in the Bahamas. We've been having a really good conversation. You've been calling in and texting in. I have to get a little bit of on this phone so that I can see if there are any other text messages that came through on the show while we were at the break. But we definitely have been having conversation. One or two callers were talking about things that weren't incest related, but certainly to see how we think as a public, right? How we think as a society about this topic and about topics surrounding it. Sexual offenses in general has been interesting. I want to go to the second suggestion that I talked to you about in that article that I had written, and talking just about education, right? We talked about age-appropriate education, body safety, consent, etc. And that brings me to the third recommendation that I had, right? Strengthening survivor services. I think this is so very important because when we are telling people to report, when we are telling people to look out for the telltale signs of incest and abuse within households, then the survivor services need to be able to meet the response. So what we're talking about is child-friendly forensic interview teams who understand the psychology of a child that has experienced incestual abuse, because you cannot approach them as you would an ordinary child or a child who has not experienced trauma. So training our professionals and our first responders to understand the psychology so that they can craft their conversation, so that they can craft their interaction, right? To be able to get what it is that they need for the necessary police reporting, et cetera, okay? Even our medical practitioners who may have to undergo who may have to lead a child that has to undergo certain medical examinations, right? Because where you have reported an instance of sexual abuse in an incestuous relationship, then medical care is needed. The child to be assessed. So ensuring that our medical practitioners are sufficiently trained to handle this type of work is also very, very important. And free long-term counseling for the child. Sometimes, in some instances, there may be a necessity for long-term counseling for a parent, right? Long-term counseling for a guardian or another adult who was the person who discovered or unmasked or unveiled what had been happening and brought it to the attention of the authorities. A lot of times, those persons are severely impacted by what they've seen and what they have come to know and what they've realized, all right? And we need to make these services accessible across our family islands. So many times when we're talking about services, when we're talking about access to response services, it's very Nassau-centric. Even though there is a lot of lack, at the end of the day, Nassau is still predominantly advanced in comparison to our other family islands. We should not have to have family members or children travel to Nassau, right, for immediate response where there is a report of incest. We need to ensure that on all of our family islands, immediate response services and care is available for all of our children. Another thing, right? Survivors shouldn't have to navigate. There shouldn't be any bureaucracy. This should not be a difficult thing or a challenging thing to go through. It should be very clear. If you are reporting an instance of incest, this is where you go. Your first port of call is the police or social services. Now, the police, if you go to the police are not necessarily mandated to report the crime that's been reported. But social services is certainly mandated to report it to the police. So I always tell my clients, go to the police first. Levy a charge. Let the police know what has been happening. Make sure that you tell them everything that you know, what you've seen, what you have heard, and what has led you to bring the matter to the attention of the authorities. All right, you have to be thorough and you have to do it as quickly as possible. So much happen in your delay. So much can happen in your deliberations. Should I or shouldn't I, or all of these questions that we sometimes ask ourselves. If you feel as though something is happening, absolutely, you have to report it. You absolutely have to report it. All right? We cannot have red tape. We cannot have instances where people are caught and our police at the stations are not sufficiently trained when it comes to the specificity of the matter to address it with the sensitivity that it requires. So we have a lot of work to do. All right? Number 4, we talked about our justice system. And a lot of callers alluded to this, that this isn't just about what's happening in the home. This is about what's happening after. And we all know that how you punish a crime, it definitely impacts the perpetrator and how they see themselves in committing that offense. And if you have fixed penalties, right? If you have strict sentencing penalties for persons who've been found guilty of incest, and they know, listen, you are going to jail for a minimum of 20 to 25 years, et cetera, that's going to be a deterrent. If we have response in our justice system where from the day of reporting of the offense to the time where the trial is concluded, if we can find a way to bring that period into a matter of weeks, we're going to see a completely different outcome in some of these cases. We cannot subject children and families to a process that is taking years. And oftentimes it causes people who know what is going on to take matters into their own hands, to move a child out of a household where they think that they're being molested or abused by a family member, and they simply relocate, or they deal with the situation themselves. You got vigilante justice and all of these different things because people don't believe that the system is adequate to address what needs to happen. But the difficulty with that is this. If Sarah is being molested by her uncle and you simply move her out of that environment, but uncle is still there. So what happens to another child, right? What happens to him? There's no accountability, there's no justice, there's no punishment. And so that is why we don't just need to address it internally. Persons need to be brought to justice. We talk about the sexual offenses register and all kinds of things. People need to know. They need to understand that these are individuals that you have to be mindful of because they have a propensity to sexually abuse children. All right? I want to go back to the call line. I know that we have a caller that's waiting. Caller, can you hear me?
Yes, how are you doing, Ms. Lyons?
I'm doing good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. Let me, I'm one of those individuals. along with Cleaver Duncombe, that for the last quarter of a century have been advocating for change within our society. Let me just say that the Bahamas faces not just a moral deficit, but an actual systems failure. And what do I mean by that? We got fragmented laws, poor data collection, and a culture of silence that actually let predators hide right within the family networks. And so until we create what I call a whole of society response, and, not where you have the state says they have one, churches say they have one, schools have one, NGOs have one, and even some community organizations. But we need a synchronized ecosystem or ecosystem that actually with it. If you look at the actual data from the reported cases, our conviction rate, the time from charge to trial,
yes,
access to counseling, even our public awareness score that was done, I think, a public awareness of exactly what incest is. And so you kind of see that right now in your conversation where you're talking about incest, and they've kind of blended the sexual assault with incest. Yes, incest can be sexual assault, but it's an actual definition of what incest is, and that's the sexual intercourse between relatives. And I don't think we've ever taken the opportunity to actually do a gap analysis. If you use just incest alone in the Bahamas, to look at exactly how we need to rethink the structure that we can have policymakers act, community leaders respond, and even civil society advocates like myself and Cleveland and others to move together in an awareness so we could begin to have actually what's called measurable action. And I know we are very, very good at talking about things when
yes,
incidents happen, as opposed to purposely designing a protection ecosystem, data-driven, so that we can have centralized, anonymized data to guide. It isn't where you have to give all of these organizations the information.
yes,
But they have anonymization in data nowadays allows them to have information, create social transformation plans, or even build institutional strength. I don't think it's ever too late to do what is right and to fix what is right. It's just that we must come together as a collective rather than the isolationist and sometimes the arrogance of ignorance of those who are in position to resolve those to resolve those issues. And so I also WhatsApp you the second half of that text that you were reading, and I look forward to continuing this conversation as you move along. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the call. Thank you so much for, I think, the wisdom in your suggestion, and that is so important. A system of protection. How do we look at this holistically and not in any kind of gaps, but how do we look at the whole and the entirety of the problem? And one of the texts said, incest is illegal in the Bahamas, no matter the age. Absolutely. This topic of conversation, though, is focused on incest, where the victim or the survivor, rather, is a child, and talking about how do we now, in a systemic, in an intelligent, in an intentional way, address those issues from a national perspective. So thank you so much. I have a couple of text messages. I got the phone back up, and so we have some power. So let me just take you to a few of the text messages. One of the texters said, can you please explain why in the Bahamas we can't set bail at $1 million for rape and $2 million for murder? Another texter said, my head did a whole exorcist spin at that text just now. Y'all need to trace that texter. Erotic thoughts do not equate with adult predators having free reign on children. Only agree with what was said if the abuser is also a minor. Thank you. Another texter said, there is some kind of psychosocial, cultural dysphoria going on in the Bahamas, in the Bahamian fabric, that is manifesting as the instances of rape being reported. We have another texter. We have another texter that said, please please read this SMS that starts with our assumption and then follow it by children experience different as they are a continuation of the other. I think this was the texter that talked a little bit about the experiences of arousal in children, etc., etc. And texter, I'd like you to call because that's quite a long text. And I think what you're saying has some context. I don't believe that you were talking about a justification of incest. I think you were trying to give us a different vantage and children who've been exposed. I know we have callers on the line. We're just going to take a small break, pay a couple of bills, and then we'll be right back.
This October, Bahama invites you to indulge your senses at the Culinary and Arts Festival, where world-class flavors meet breathtaking creativity in the heart of the Bahamas. Join us October 22nd through 26th for an unforgettable celebration featuring culinary legends Daniel Boulud, Dario Cecchini, and Simeon Hall Jr., alongside a vibrant lineup of Bahamian chefs and mixologists. Explore captivating art installations, interactive workshops, and live performances, all set against the stunning backdrop of Nassau's premier luxury resort. And don't miss an electrifying live performance by global superstar Lenny Kravitz, headlining the festival's welcome party on Friday, October 24th, with a concert experience you won't forget. This is more than a festival, it's a feast for the soul. Tickets and packages are going fast. Visit bahamar.com to reserve your spot at the Culinary and Arts Festival at Bahamar, where taste and talent take center stage. Bahamar, life spectacular.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news and intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversations. 96.9 FM.
And we are back. This is Guardian Radio Today, 96.9 FM. And we've been having a wonderful discussion. Of course, this is Robin Lines in your company. I am so grateful for the texters and the callers who have been so open and so frank in this discussion. We only have a few minutes left. There was a texter that talked a little bit about children and, I guess, sexual exposure at a young age and the implications of that kind of exposure. I hope that texter can call in, and I want to give you the numbers one more time because we're almost out of time. Can you believe it? I can't believe that time has gone so fast. I guess it happens when you're having fun. But 422-4796, that's the text line. 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259, or toll free 242-300-5720. We have a caller on the line. Caller?
Yes, good afternoon. This is the infamous Robin Lyons. I know the name.
Yes,
I know you've been on Guardian before because I'm familiar with voice. I thank you for disclosing the name. I go on to say Gabby when I call.
Oh, yeah?
Because that's the only celebrity I know is beyond like this guy. But I wanted this a very interesting conversation. I listened to C. Allen. I listened to the texter. So as it relates to the dysphoria, right?
Yes.
She's saying, just bear in mind that dysphoria within itself is not a diagnosis, but it's aligned or linked to some other mental conditions like bipolar and other things like that. That has no relevance in sexual deviance. But the texter who hinted to the hypersexualization of the young children, it is taking place because I had called just later than this week a primary school where my daughter goes, and she was disclosing things to my wife and me, like from as far as grade 1 and 2.
Wow.
And it's a government school, and so they have to accept everybody. And
How old is she?
Hello?
How old is your daughter?
She's 9 now, about to be 10 in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And so what I'm saying is it frightens me because I'm a protector, right? And so I had frightened many hearts just a few weeks ago, and parts of the Cleveland Sea Island, because they've been at the forefront of this, but I'm just talking about my input. I maybe frightened some of their hearts of the pedophiles, right? Because I'd said that in conjunction with social services, the police, et cetera, whatever, whoever, I don't care. Where there's a will, there's a way. Let's get into these schools, question these students. That's like you go and question them with who using alcohol and drugs. Let's find out who abusing these children, because mostly a lot of incest, whether it's sometimes so it'll be suppressed, but when not, sometimes the family sought to suppress these things. But this is actually happening on a wider scale, Ms. Lyons, and it's really frightening to me as a father up in age. I mean, I'm just saying that it's taking place, and it's more predominant than we think. And as I said, we just sitting back and just listen to you. There has to be some real impetus towards solving this problem. So if we question students and then we align that, and people know uncles, whoever they are, because they can be on both sides of the fence. So let's frighten them and realize that the schools will be coming after them through the police force. And so that's the only way. Otherwise, we're just sitting and talking because it is taking place. And I'm seeing it because I don't even want to repeat what my daughter was telling me about.
Oh, wow.
Just the comments and just coming from
But you
children.
need to share it. You have to share it. The public needs to know.
But it's sexual deviances for children that age. I couldn't believe it. And so even at this age, people are noticing her, and there is lesbianism going on at that age, and the people suggesting these things and talking these things, and so it's becoming a sick society. But nobody wants to address the problem. And I tell people, it's the government's duty to keep the public deceived. Most people are not intelligent enough to understand that. They honestly believe. See, when you enlighten the masses, the people will know how to react. You'll create a frenzy. It's just like when you walk in the building and say, "Keep calm," and everybody listen to the fall of a building catch on fire. Keep calm and remain. No one can tell me to remain calm. I'm trying to get out there and all that. Give thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Listen, I appreciate you sharing your personal experience. Your 9-year-old daughter being met with the kind of conversation, the kind of interactions that no 9-year-old should really have to experience. And these are the realities, and that's why we have to have real, honest, open conversation with a view to problem solving. I'm really thankful. And I was saying I wanted the caller to text that was talking about the child and talking about exposure and talking about how children respond when they have been sexually exposed. And that was C. Allen. So we did have a conversation with C. Allen. I didn't put the text together with your call, C. Allen. So thank you so very, very much. You're always very measured and very insightful in what you say and how you are able to articulate. So I appreciate that. But we only have a few moments left. But I just want to go to the last of the recommendations that I had in that brief article, and I'm gonna try to see if we can, like I said in part 2 of this show, it may not be Friday coming, or it may be, depending on whether or not we can get the guest in the studio audience. But if we are able to, I want to talk to like services, the police, the crisis center, and some other agencies that are on the front line of responding, even an individual in the medical profession, because we have to see the problem holistically. We have to address it through the lens of all of the nuances that exist, right? We can't look at one part and negate the other. But one of the things I had mentioned in the article was that we have to invest in family support and community education. And this is not to suggest that things aren't happening everywhere. But based on what is being reported, there are certain communities and there are certain socioeconomic factors that exist in instances where incest against children are highly prevalent, all right? So we need parenting programs. We need economic support for struggling families, targeted interventions in communities with high levels of stress, so that we can reduce the conditions that allow incestuous abuse to fester. At the same time, we're talking about nationwide awareness campaigns, right? That challenge the culture of secrecy, that encourage reporting, and ensure that assure survivors that they will be supported and not shamed, supported and not embarrassed. And I know that we have one or two persons that may call in just before we end, because we got about 4 minutes left before the show comes to conclusion. But I want to hear from you on that particular point, the investment of family support and community education. A lot of times we don't want to have these kinds of conversations. And a caller said something that is true, and we cannot allow it to stay true. The caller said these instances have been normalized. Now, listen, I'm not naive to what is going on. I'm not naive to how long it's been going. But normalizing something is an acceptance. And we could never accept this as something that we allow in our country. Can never do it. Because at the end of the day, like I said before, we're talking about someone's life. And a lot of times, these children never fully recover from what they have endured and what they have experienced at the hand of a family member, at the hand of someone who has been placed in proximity to them as a protector, as someone that they should be able to go to, that they should be able to trust, right? And now that person is a predator. And of course, like I said, we're focusing on incest, we're focusing on the family dynamic, but child abuse is happening in this country in every facet, every space. All right? We have people who are in positions of trust, who are manipulating and abusing their access to children. We have persons who have entered into certain professions to satisfy their predatory nature. We have real challenges, you know. And like I said, we only have a few minutes. I want to take this caller. It may be the last caller we can take. You're live, caller. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, one of the problems we have also with this incest matter is that women needs to pay more attention to their children. They have these men and grandfathers and uncles bathing their children, and they need to pay more attention, closer attention to their children. You understand? Because you can't have a strange person, uncle and thing, and grandfather and thing bathing your children. You understand?
Yes.
I was in a situation, the lady asked me to bathe a 5-year-old daughter. I said, please, must take that child to your mother and let her deal with that child. I don't know that I'm not that child. You understand what I'm saying? They're too smart for these children, man.
That's interesting.
Have a nice day.
I appreciate that, caller. And the caller's talking about protecting, right? Protecting. What do you, and who do you allow to do what to your children? And it's not just mothers, caller. It's fathers, it's aunties, it's uncles, it's the village, it's the neighbor, it's the friend, it's the pastor, it's the Sunday school teacher. It's all of us. It is all of us. It is our responsibility to protect, to nurture, to rear our children, to give them the best chance to be healthy contributors to this society. I think we're out of time, even though we're not out of talk. This has been a heavy conversation on a Friday, but I think it was a necessary one. It was such a pleasure and a privilege to be with you today. Sorry again for my congestion. I'm going to be back on Friday, either with part 2 of this or another topic of conversation that we need to have. Thank you so much for every texter, every caller, every listener. You've been a wonderful co-host. I could not have done it without you. Thank you to the Guardian Radio team and Mr. Producer keeping me on track. This has been Robin Lines, your host for Guardian Radio today. I want to say condolences to the family of Minister Vaughn Miller, who was laid to rest today. Let's continue to keep his wife and children, especially his young son. I think he's only 5 or 6